And can you let the members of the public in, please?
Yep, they're all coming in.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hello.
Hi.
I think
Hi.
we've got one more member to come. Or is it? Oh, no. No, I'm not counting two. Sorry. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. No, there's 6 now. Sorry, I missed the 2. Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the planning meeting at Haverhill Town Council. Sorry, it's called the Working Party. I must get that out of my head. Welcome to the Haverhill Town Council Planning Working Party. And number 1 on the agenda is to note that this working party has no delegated authority and may only make recommendations to the full council, the full town council, that is. Urgent actions may be taken under delegated authority given to the clerk and the chair, which is me. Right, thank you, everyone. And item 2, Vicky, apologies for absence, or any member of the committee?
No, none received.
Okay. Thank you. And number 4, which is minutes of the previous meeting. Which is, can you bring it up, Vicky? Bring them up, what you say? Unfortunately, I've not got the page numbers on there. I'll just have to say the next one. Ah, you have 243. I haven't on mine. Just left them out. Okay, 244, please. Two, 4, 5. 2, 4, 6. Everyone's read them, and they members of the committee, yeah? Yeah. I don't see anyone saying no. So 247. 248.
That's it.
Thank you. May I have a proposal? Oh, hold on a second, I've lost you. That one. Okay, you're back now with me. Okay, may I have a proposer? Oh, the next one, sorry. Yes, I'll need a proposer and a seconder before I go to the matters arising. Okay, can I have a proposer for a seconder for those minutes, please? Proposed by Councillor Crooks. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Lucrini. All those in favour, please show. That's it, overall. Thank you.
Chair,
Yes.
did you ask for declarations of interest?
Oh, sorry, I do apologise. Right, okay, yeah, item 3, sorry. Is any member declaring any pecuniary interest or request for dispensation? Anyone? No? Okay. Right, item 5, which is matters arising from those minutes. Is there any matters arising? No? No? Okay, thank you. Item 6, for members of the public to speak on planning matters other than the applications before the working party. If you wish to speak, please make yourself known to the clerk. Mind you, she can see who you are in any case on there. Before the meeting commences. Right, does anyone want to speak other than the planning matters you've got? Is that Mr. Ford, Michael? Yeah, thank you. And then Brad Strachan.
Yes, I just wanted to, sorry, good evening, Chair, good evening, members.
Good evening.
I just wanted to follow up on a letter that I forwarded to the planning working party regarding our, seems ongoing situation regarding Ansuffing Road. One of our neighbours sent a letter to our local MP, Matt Hancock, and part of the reply was that this matter had been considered at West Suffolk and also Suffolk Highways, and that their consideration was that the road was perfectly suitable for the joining up and to be an access road. Currently, we believe that the matter is still ongoing for planning, and we would like to know how far that planning has got.
Okay, Colin or Vicky, do you know how far that's got as far as the Suffolk County Council is concerned?
I've had no further
West
update.
Suffolk. Does any councillor know at all? Councillor Burns?
As far as I know, it's still under discussion between all the various consultees. I believe the last time I looked, nothing has been decided. I suspect, I'm not certain whether the local ward members have called it in. If not, they should have called it in, or one of them anyway. So that at least it goes to the delegation panel. We don't want the officer making a delegated decision without anything, but the town council has objected, so it should go to delegation. I haven't seen it come up on any lists yet. And if it does, the ward member can insist it goes to committee, where it will be decided amongst the 16 members of the development committee, of which 4 of them are from Haverhill. You know, the trouble is we're only 25%, of course, but if we have the right arguments, you know, you can sway those decisions. We're not allowed to obviously make any thoughts public before that meeting, but I believe that's the latest state of play. I'm just looking here. It still says pending consideration at the moment.
Yeah, unfortunately, we haven't got the West Suffolk councillors here because they're not on the planning committee.
Well, I am, and councillor.
For the ward that it concerns, I mean.
Oh no, not well. No, they're not. But it should go through any. It won't be allowed to go past delegation because of the fact that the town council has objected.
Thank you, Councillor Brown.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. In the meantime, what I do suggest, Michael, is that you get all your neighbours. I think some have already written in, but as many as you can to write an objection and really get them numbers up, because it does get taken into account. I think that's the best thing to do at the moment. But obviously, we'll support you as much as we can as well.
Michael, do you want to come back?
Yes, it was just the fact that the the tone of the letter that we saw back from the Suffolk councillor was such that everything had already been decided. Now, obviously, we understand. I know our local ward member has called this in, and I know it will go before the planning development control meeting. But the whole fact is that this project now is nowhere near what the original master plan was. And on the actual application, there's no consultee comments on there on the new drawings. There's nothing from Suffolk Highways. In fact, there's no consultee comments on that at all. And that is very worrying.
Okay. Right. Is it Brad first? And thank you for that. Christine, do you want to speak while you?
No, I'm fine, thank you.
Right. Okay. Right. Does Anne want to speak first? Anne?
Yeah, just quickly. I can say that nearly everybody in the state is incredibly anxious about this, because we seem as if we're being misled. We didn't believe this was going to be a primary access road. I think most people were very happy for it to have a bus gate, but from the meeting we saw in September, where the person who was doing the infrastructure plan for Persimmon actually had did show a loop around where it would be reconnected, where it would go back to the relief road, but then said it would take some hedges out instead, so we'll just come down Ansuckling Road. It was a moment of great alarm, really. Highways apparently replied to Matt Hancock saying this road can take more intensification of traffic. I don't know what that's based on, and I don't know, should we be asking for some freedom of information about how they come to this decision? And is it based on the fact that personal houses right on the end, which I just measured today, it's 9 foot away, 9 feet away, or 3 meters from the junction, the front door, on those 4 houses right at the access point, on top of all of the reports of near accidents and so on. Anyway, so I just wonder, is there anything else we can do? Can I just say there's 300 people signed a petition on the estate about this. It's very hard to get information out when we still can't meet properly. We would love to meet, but we don't feel it's safe with COVID. A lot of people say, can we get a meeting together? We can't think of a way of doing that safely. But anyway, to say that there's ongoing concern about this, really, for so many reasons. And if you've got to balance a hedge, which are, I love hedges, there's nobody been fighting more hedges, but you balance a hedge against the change of deterioration of a road because of a lot more use, the pollution, cars idling at the end where they've got to go into single file to come out from here. There has to be some kind of balance and measuring about that. So I didn't know if there's anything else we can do. Anyway, thank you.
Well, on the question of, it seems the highways that's commented on that. I think you need to get in touch with highways and ask the question.
All right, thank you.
I don't know if you know the person to get in touch with.
No.
Perhaps Councillor Roach could help us, who's on Suffolk County Council, on that. The name of the person we could get in touch with, if you're listening, please.
Sorry, Pat. You have to go through West Suffolk Planning. You can't go direct to County Council because it all goes through West Suffolk's Planning Department.
Okay.
It's an LPA process.
So it has to go through Penny then.
So anything to do with any planning application goes through the planning authority, and Suffolk County Council will be a statutory consultee, but they will not control the planning process.
But can she ask that question to them? No.
Not really. No, it has to go through West Suffolk.
Yeah, to West Suffolk. She can ask that question through West Suffolk.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Okay, Penny. Okay, thank you. Councillor Burns?
Yeah, let me follow on from that, because Councillor Mason is obviously the ward member for Haverhill North. He's also the county councillor for that area as well. At the very least,
copied in then. It could be
very least. Well, yeah, very least that. I think I've not seen. I've seen the question going to Matt Hancock. I've not seen the response from Matt Hancock or whoever wrote back. Whether it's somebody at West Suffolk through Matt Hancock's office or I don't know who it is. I've just seen a thing in the chat about Paul West making a comment. Going back to certainly the 2014, I think it was, outline planning permission, and I'm guessing on the year, but I think it was then. It was certainly the case that Anne Suckling Road, or Anne Suckling Lane, whichever way you want to call it, was never going to be the primary route into the estate. That is why the relief road is there. 50 years ago, when Sir Frederick Gibbard was designing the town expansion, he did suggest that, but it was later moved further north, as we know. And certainly all the discussions I've had over the last 5 or 6 years on this site have never indicated that. And I know there's a desire for, I've got no problem with the busway through there or even taxis going through there. No, I've got no problem with that. I think it's just general run-of-the-mill traffic going through there, with all the potential problems. The master plan is always a plan. We saw that on phase 1 where Persimmon knocked down the hedgerow illegally, and but prior to that they changed the way that the master plan by having the road coming out. I think it's called Bevis Closel Road, or whatever it's called now, coming out onto the A143. So I think all you can do is, as Councillor Brown said earlier, is to make sure all your views are mentioned. I see them all. I've just searched the portal. I did see Councillor Mason called it in about May last year. So we must make sure that's not forgotten about. But also have a look at all the other aspects of that infrastructure plan, because the road has been changed now internally from what was originally envisaged. Certainly when I was speaking to people like Stagecoach, they always envisaged that only buses would go through that road into there, not general traffic. I don't think it's necessarily going to be a shortcut to the bypass, because why would you go all the way around that circuit when you could just go a few hundred yards up the road and turn left? But equally, we all know what Anne Suckling Road is like getting out of, particularly at school time or heavy peak time. And there's no provision for any traffic lights or any roundabout or anything there. We've obviously got all the traffic is now parking along the road, effectively making it into not far off a one-way road or a single track road. So that's all we can do, but we need to make sure that it gets past delegation. So at least we have more than one, or we have at least not the officer deciding it, not 3 members of the council who don't live anywhere near the area. We need that representation through the full committee. Thank you.
Brad?
Yeah. Hi, thanks. I was just ask a similar sort of follow-up question, really, based on some of the stuff that John's talking about. I mean, I'm as interested as anything about how we keep proactive on this, because we seem to keep having to wait for a meeting to come along when actually things have all moved a huge amount on the ground. And so, in a way, the rug's pulled out from underneath you before you ever get to the meeting, really. So how do we become more proactive on making our thoughts and position known to an extent that it actually gets people out here to have a look at the damn site?
Well, the only thing I can suggest is obviously put that question to Penny. But also try and, you said there's 200 that's done that. 300. If 1 or 2 of you can speak, because you only get 3 minutes at the decision-making body, which is the West Suffolk development control, if you can represent, one or two of you represent those 300 and state it that you're representing those 300 to the committee, at least you've got sort of all them sort of people behind you. But you do need to make it brief, your statement.
We know.
Because 3 minutes is so, I've done it, and it's so quick, it's just unbelievable. So you need to, get to the point and keep to the point, really. That's the only thing that I can personally advise you, really. Councillor Brown?
Thanks, Pat.
Yeah, I think David said, it's all got to go through West Suffolk and not to contact Suffolk County Council directly. Now, I would 100% be sending as many emails as I can and pestering Suffolk Highways, the cabinet member in charge of Suffolk Highways and everyone else that's involved with it. Make sure that they know there's a huge strength of feeling, against their proposed plans. It will get through. The message will get through. That's what I would personally be doing. I wouldn't take too much notice of, don't bother them. I would be bothering them big time. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. Councillor Rukuni?
Yeah, on another development, Highways didn't object to it, and I contacted the Highways department, and they changed their response to an objection. So it does work.
All right. Nice to know.
Good advice.
Thank you.
Councillor Burns?
Yeah, just something you mentioned, Chair. Now on the Development Control Committee, you can now send in an audio comment, objection, support. It doesn't have to be written, so you can time it down to that 3 minutes. And I would always recommend that if you're going to, get together with all your colleagues and everybody, get one script written, time it down to 3 minutes, and then you won't get that problem as you said, Chair, about, and I see it so many times, of getting 3/4 of the way through your speech and then the chair says, sorry, that's enough. Well, actually that last paragraph might be the most important part.
Yeah.
Bear that in mind.
Okay. So get your best words in first. Right. Okay. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for attending. Right, and goodbye if you're going. Thank you for attending. Thank you. Right, item 7. Alison Cornish, Town Planner of Taylor Wimpey, East Anglia, to give a presentation on the draft layout of the proposed development at Weaver's View, 3 Counties Way.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for this opportunity to speak to you. I'll introduce myself and my other colleagues who are the faces on the screen. As you alluded, my name's Alison Cornish and I'm the Town Planner for Taylor Wimpey, and my responsibility is to hopefully obtain reserved matters permission for this development, which we have now referred to as the Arboretum Phase 2 as of today. So it won't be referred to the Weaver's View going forwards. With me today I have Dan Humphreys, who is the designer on this scheme for Taylor Wimpey, and will be responsible for the layout and all the elevations and materials and the treatment of the buildings as a whole. And I have Connor Gillett, who is Assistant Planning Coordinator, who will be helping me in preparing the reserve matters application ready for submission. As I say, thank you for letting us come to the meeting this evening to introduce you to the scheme. This meeting is basically the start of our public consultation exercise on this development. We'll shortly be going to Withersfield Parish Council meeting in a couple of weeks' time to give them the similar presentation. And then we'll be undertaking a formal public consultation exercise, which Connor will be running from the 29th of November, which will run for 4 weeks and will enable everybody to have their input into the development, and will be run via a website rather than an in-person consultation exercise. We have a short presentation to give you in a few minutes about the layout and things, but I just wanted to give you a bit of background to this site and how we've got to where we are today, really. As you're probably all aware, the site was allocated for employment use previously in the local plan. And the Arboretum Phase 1 development, which we delivered a few years ago, was the enabling development, which enabled the employment land to be delivered and serviced, ready for use. It was apparent, I think, before we got involved, that there was no demand for this employment land. There was no take-up, despite it being marketed. And so in April this year, outline planning permission was granted at appeal for the residential development of this site. And the inspector basically took the view that as there's no take-up of the employment land, that there was plenty of other employment land available in Haverhill for employment uses, and that the development of the site for residential use would the sustainability would outweigh, or the benefits of that would outweigh the loss of it as employment land. He decided to grant outline planning permission for it. On that basis, Taylor Wimpey have purchased the site for development, and the outline planning permission is for up to 155 dwellings. So we're working on that basis currently. The site, just to give you sort of an overview, the site will be developed in accordance with Taylor Wimpey's environmental strategy, which basically comprises of 3 pillars. First being to address climate change within our development. The second, to improve biodiversity and nature value of our sites. And the third is to reduce waste by minimising the use of resources and also using sustainable resources where possible. So just to give you just a bit of background about the climates of change features that we would have within the development if permission is granted. We will be building the houses to comply with Part L and F of the new building regulations, which are emerging at the moment. So nothing set in stone as to how that's going to be achieved, but it's likely that our houses will have photovoltaic panels on the roofs, and we would also use things like wastewater heat recovery and gas flue heat recovery systems. We would also use a fabric first approach, which ensures that our houses are as energy efficient as they can be within the way they're constructed. And in 2025, we will obviously be replacing any proposal to use gas boilers with either electric boilers or ground source heat pumps, but or air source heat pumps, sorry. We're just trying to work out what the best solution is going to be at this point in time. And also all our sites where they have on-site parking would be provided with electric car charging points. So that's the sort of the way in which we're intending to achieve that, basically a climate change, so sensitive development, if you like. And the other part of our sustainability sort of strategy is to ensure that our sites have sort of maximum biodiversity and nature value. So we would be trying to increase the habitats for wildlife on the site by 10%. And we do things like provide hedgehog highways, beehives, bird boxes, bat boxes within our developments to try and increase their biodiversity value as much as possible. So those are the sort of underlying, if you like, features and sort of views that we'd be sort of using within this development. So we sort of start off with that as a basis, and then what we're in the process of doing is appointing all the technical consultants that will help develop and support our reserve matters application, and they will be drainage consultants, ecology consultants, landscape consultants, and engineers to advise on highways issues and car parking requirements. So all those technical consultants will input into the overall layout that we eventually come up with. And obviously any comments that we get and input we get from like yourselves and arising from the public consultation exercise will be incorporated where possible into the final layout. So on that basis, I'll hand over to Dan, who will talk you through the concept that we've sort of come up with and our initial thoughts and ideas. And then at the end of the presentation, we'd welcome your input, thoughts, questions, any things you'd like us to take into consideration going forwards. So I'll hand over to Dan now to run through the presentation for the layout with you.
Thank you, Alison. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, members of the committee. Hopefully you can see the presentation I've just added to the screen. That's great. So just moving on to the first page, I have around 9 slides here. I'll try not to take too long. I know you're very busy people, but just to give you a bit of background and context for what we're proposing and how we've arrived at our initial decisions. I think, as Alison said, we are at the very early stages, so the layout you'll see shortly certainly isn't fixed. It's really just our starting point to address the agreed parameters as we know them. So just starting off with this first site location plan, I'm sure you're all very familiar with the site, and particularly the context as well, obviously with the main A1017 and A1037 carriageways to the north and the west. We've also got the epicenter building just off of the northern boundary. Our existing Arboretum development, which is obviously now complete, fully occupied, and Hanchett End as well to the southern boundary. And also the site is surrounded by these existing landscape buffers, which I'm sure you'll know are quite substantial. And we've got just a few recent views of the site which confirm how flat it is and how important the landscape infrastructure is that surrounds it. Just moving on to the next slide. This is the approved development framework plan, which is essentially the master plan for the development. You see there's this large list of features to the right-hand side, which build up the layers to this particular plan. But at the bottom of the page, I've added some of the key considerations that we'll be looking at as the layout evolves. The first one being, as Alison touched on, a limitation on building numbers up to 155 homes, and that's arriving at 45 dwellings per hectare. It also provides a guide to the potential internal road network layout and hierarchy, and also how the buildings may be positioned around those roads. We also have a potential for a tree-lined entrance highway and also pedestrian priority areas. As with any of our developments and good urban design, we always like to make them walkable so that the pedestrians take priority over vehicles, and that's something we'll be looking to do here as well. This plan also provides fixed locations for the public open space. You can see just above the existing pond, a potential area for a large children's play area. It also shows the existing footpath network in these pink lines you can see, which originate from the Arboretum development and through the current existing public open space and to the retained employment areas beyond. And we've mentioned the existing landscape buffers as well around the perimeter, which not only will we look to retain, but also enhance around the edges of the development also. Just on to the next slide. This is a plan which really just builds on the framework plan. So a lot of the similar principles, but again, it talks about the agreed existing, or proposed, I should say, access points to the development from Three Counties Way. It also asks for outward-looking buildings which overlook important public open spaces. Obviously, that's good from a secure by design point of view to make those existing and proposed spaces feel safe in the future for all end users. It also talks about the sensitive boundaries. Obviously, we have interactions with the Arboretum development in this bottom right-hand corner you see here. Also have the existing nursery to the northeast, so we won't be looking to overlook that particular building or many others, should I say. And also the existing carriageway to the west, where there are going to be noise considerations, where the placement of proposed buildings will need to respect this and alleviate noise issues for future residents should we get to that point in time. I mentioned the proposed play area. This is likely to be in the form of a leap, so we'll have several items of natural play, and that links well to the existing pond and the surrounding footpath network as well. And it's obviously located centrally between the Arboretum development and potentially this new development as well, so accessible to all. So this is our initial stab at the detailed layout, which sits within the parameters I've just discussed. The gross site area, we're looking at just over 5.5 hectares. We're actually proposing 148 dwellings at this stage. That could fluctuate depending on how the design evolves based on the comments we receive. But that works out at a net density of 44 dwellings per hectare, so slightly below what we had at the Arboretum site alongside. The overall housing mix will include 44 affordable homes, which represents 30% of the overall housing mix, and that will include 80% rented 10-year dwellings and 20% shared ownership. And the mixture of housing across the development is between 1 and 5 bedroom properties, but also includes some apartments as well. The public open space, as you saw from the parameter plans, is located as suggested, just to the northeast of the existing pond. Mention what that might include. Existing landscape buffers are completely retained, and as I say, as the detailed landscape proposals evolve, we'll demonstrate how they will be built upon. Key open spaces and the streets are to be overlooked by buildings. This is very much an outward-looking development, so that all the streets that we propose are overlooked by active windows, again making them feel safe. People sort of looking from habitable rooms. We're also looking to provide a fully walkable neighbourhood. Mentioned that was something also shown in the parameter plans. We'll have traditional highways, as is the entrance highway coming into the development, with traditional footpaths alongside, but also in the beige colour areas you can see shared surface roads, which obviously take priority for pedestrians and go beyond to meet the new footpath links as suggested at the outline stage. The streets will be fully accessible by refuse and emergency vehicles. We will be providing tracking arrangements just to make sure that that is successful before submitting the planning application. The car parking will be in accordance with the current Suffolk parking standards. So the priority is always to get the parking on plot or close to the front door as possible. And the number of spaces is normally dictated by the number of bedrooms in the particular property that serves. And we did also mention about the constraint, the adjacent Arboretum development, where we're looking to flank that particular boundary to ensure there's no overlooking from the proposed proposed buildings over the existing development. But those proposals will emerge as we move through the process. So this next slide just shows you how we distribute the proposed housing in particular. You'll note from the blue properties where we've located the affordable housing. So that basically occupies 4 development cells, as we would call it, on this particular layout. So well integrated into the private housing. And then the colour scheme just shows how the 2 to 5 bedroom private properties will be distributed, offering variety to our potential purchasers at a later date. And I've also got in this table here, you can see the percentages that we're looking at currently. There is a predominance of 3-bed homes, so it sits in the middle of the housing range in general. Since the next slide, we've got the approved story heights parameter plan in this top right-hand corner, which shows you where 2-storey properties in yellow, 2.5-storey properties in orange, and 3-storey dwellings in brown are to be located on the final detailed plan. We are mostly in accordance with this particular parameter, with the exception of 2 of the apartment blocks. Currently, you can see just where the cursor hand is located, where these buildings are located for placemaking purposes, terminating views at the site entrance in particular, although I would say at this stage, the apartments we are looking to propose as flat roofs, which will keep the overall story heights down as far as possible. So onto the open space layout, again, we have a parameter plan which illustrates where the residential dwellings or the extent of the residential land should be located and how that relates to the green space, all of which is quantified. The notes I've provided just in the bottom right-hand corner just illustrate that we are slightly down on the residential area, which means there is a marginal increase in the green space, but this really just demonstrates that we haven't encroached in areas of green space that we shouldn't be. We are looking to fully comply with the approved parameter plans. In terms of public open space, we're looking to provide the 1 formal children's play area I've already spoken about, 2 glades, which are quite hard to see on the plan here, but just 2 circular areas which link the residential development with the actual employment land to the north. And we've got an illustration of what those glades might look like just in the top right-hand corner. So we'll be looking to replicate something like that as the proposals emerge. So just onto some proposed street scenes and character analysis. The outline application does talk a lot about replicating what we have at the Arboretum development, or using that at least for design cues towards the new development. So obviously we'll be looking to complement those materials, and if we can, bring the design on to the next stage in the current day. So in these photographs at the bottom of the page, we have the Arboretum, as I said, and as we move across to the right, we're sort of ending up with where we want to be with this particular design in this instance. So contemporary in appearance, reflective of the Arboretum development. We're looking to have some occasional rhythm with the buildings. This view at the top here is actually the main vista point as you come up into the site from the main access. We're looking to provide something distinctive within that entrance square as you approach. So with very clean, unfussy detailing with good quality materials, and where we have, or we've at least picked out landmark focal buildings, we'll be looking to enhance the elevations of those to help with their wayfinding properties. So just the final slide, we do just have some key dates, some of which Alison has already touched on. We've already been to see West Suffolk Council on one occasion. That was in mid-October. So since then, we've been reviewing the comments that we've received, and obviously we'll be doing the same with the comments we received this evening. The next meeting with the council is booked in for the middle of November, where we'll talk about what we're due to do for the next version of the layout. Alison also mentioned the public engagement process, which is due to commence towards the end of this month, leading into December. We'll then look at the final amendments on the back of the comments received through that engagement process, followed by a reserve matters application towards the end of January, if all goes to plan. So I hope that didn't take too long. I would just say I'm happy to share this with you just for your records after the meeting, but over to you. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Dan.
So in a nutshell, that's what we're sort of proposing. As I say, we welcome your thoughts and ideas, inputs, bits you like, bits you don't like, bits you'd like us to look at again. And the plan is to obviously take on board your comments, all the other comments from the public consultation exercise, and prepare a final layout sort of around Christmas time. So if we were able to, we would like to come back to the committee in early January before we make the formal submission to show you where we've come sort of progressed to and what the format of the actual submitted application will look like. So yeah, this is the beginning of the process, if you like.
Thank you very much, Alison. It's did I get your name right?
Yes, yeah.
Yes, I did. Yeah, yeah. It's very kind of you to come back to us. That'd be really good. And if you can get in touch with Vicky,
yeah,
and then obviously arrange it. Before I come to Councillor Brown and Councillor Burns, my thoughts is the road that leads to the A1307, the road that comes out of that is the A1307. Yeah, I'll get mixed up between the two. But the road that leads out from the new estate into the main road. Obviously, that was built in mind for the science park type. You know, well, then it was made for warehousing as well afterwards. But obviously, with the amount of people that will be going into these 54 or 48?
148 at the moment, yeah.
148 houses with that amount of people. Is the junction good enough for that amount of cars to come out, where it's just good enough for lorries before, you know, at the start when it was built? That is my main concern on that.
I think you're referring to Three Counties Way that comes off the main road and comes, yeah.
It goes into the main road.
Yeah, when the inspector considered the appeal, he obviously took that into account, and the view he took was that because the land was allocated for employment use, the traffic that would be generated by the employment use would actually be a lot higher than the residential development of 148 or 155 dwellings. So he didn't consider that it would be a problem. It would cause any traffic congestion or require any upgrading of the junction. So there were no conditions or anything put on the outline permission requiring any upgrade to the junction. But so the baseline for the traffic count, if you like, was considerably higher than it is currently, because the permitted use on that site would be for employment use.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Councillor Brown, then Councillor Burns.
Yeah. Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Alison. Dan. Right. I'm going to ask you some questions first. Yeah. What does this development actually bring to Haverhill? What's it going to bring to Haverhill? We're already having 4,000 houses built And we had a huge consultation process around that, the Vision 2031 plans, a huge amount of local engagement. The land where you're going to build those houses was our strategic employment land. There was going to be 2,000, we were sold the story that we was going to get 2,000 highly paid jobs there, that was going to underpin the whole of the Vision 2031 plans, and to make the town sustainable. Now, a huge part of that's been taken away, and you're going to build houses, more houses on it. My view personally is that this whole development isn't sustainable at all. To get anything, to get a loaf of bread or a pint of milk, you're going to have to jump in a car. There's no shop nearby. There's a poor bus service, the 113, which currently they're taking buses off because they can't get the drivers. So I don't know where these people are going to work, because you're sitting these houses on one of the big chunks of employment land that we was going to have. I don't know how they're going to get to work sustainably in Cambridge or wherever they're going, because there's a very poor bus service. Cars will be heading out on the A1307 towards Cambridge on a hugely congested road already. So I can't see what benefit that brings either. We've already got one of the worst health provisions in Suffolk. We're around 3,000 people per doctor here. That's going to add more burden, to our already stretched, health services. These people won't pay a penny in council tax at Haverhill Town Council, even though we will be putting on all the events and all the stuff that you'll make this a great community. I welcome the fact that you're going to make these buildings sustainable. That's to be merited. But the rest of it, I'm totally against it. It does nothing for Haverhill. It does nothing for Haverhill area. All it suits is the landowner and you, the developers, to make some money out of it. So, not happy with it at all. Thank you. Okay. Chairman, is it okay if I respond to those comments? Yeah. Okay. I was going to take them sort of in order. I fully appreciate the District Council's view on this site, and obviously your views as well, in that it was allocated as an employment site, and therefore the expectation was that it was going to be used for employment and job creation. And that was obviously the basis on which the application was refused by the District Council when it was taken before them to be determined at outline stage, which is obviously the reason it then went to appeal. Taylor Wimpey obviously weren't involved at that point in time. That was another, it was obviously the land promoter that was involved at that process. But the main thrust of the appeal was whether or not this land was needed for employment use going forwards. And that was what the inspector basically focused on in terms of weighing up the pros and cons of the development. And they came to the view that the land had been marketed for quite a number of months, I think, years, for employment use. It wasn't taken up. So that was the first consideration. The second was that there was plenty of other employment land according to the local plan allocations, and the inspector's consideration of the evidence was put before him or her that there was sufficient employment land to meet the need in Haverhill. And obviously then the third point was that he or she considered that it was more sustainable use for the land if it was put to residential use rather than sitting there as unused employment land for that period of time. One of the other considerations in terms of viewing whether residential use for that land was appropriate was the fact that, and obviously I wasn't involved in this, but reading the information, that the evidence that was put forward was that there has been a significant under-delivery of housing in Haverhill. Whilst they've had allocated sites, they haven't met their housing numbers to be delivered. This is obviously the facts and figures. It's obviously I wasn't involved in this. Those are the facts and figures that the inspector used to make his decision or her decision, that this site is ready serviced, it's connected to all the mains, it's ready to go, and therefore it would be brought online very quickly to deliver houses very quickly, whereas some of the other sites have been set aside for residential development haven't delivered the houses that were forecast within the local plan programming process. So those are a couple of things. In terms of the connections to sort of local services,
all that would have been considered at the outline planning permission stage. This is actually only the reserve matters stage. So the principle of residential development on the site has already been established at the outline planning permission stage. And that's when they would have looked at links to the local services and the local shops. So we're sort of slightly constrained in what we can actually do to address some of the points you were making, because the site's already set up as it is, and the outline permission with the various conditions that would need to be met have already been set in stone. So we've got to work within that limited, or within that sort of master plan, within that constraint that's been established by the outline planning permission. That's not to say that we're going to try and maximise the layouts, that we get good sort of pedestrian flow through the site and good linkages to the surrounding area. So as I say, it's a bit difficult because this is only reserve matters. In terms of the vehicle generation, traffic generation, as I sort of alluded to before, the way that would have been considered is that the allocation for the site for outline use would have generated a certain number of vehicle movements. And when you're looking at a traffic assessment, you look at the baseline number of vehicle movements before you then start looking at whether you're going to have a negative or a positive effect on traffic generation. So the baseline for this site would have been set quite high to start with, because you would have had the employment, the traffic associated with the employment use as your baseline sort of counting point, if you like, to determine whether you're going to generate more vehicle traffic or less. And in terms of the health contribution and the impact on healthcare facilities, as part of the outline planning permission and the section 106 that accompanied that permission, we are required to pay a financial contribution towards healthcare provision for the Haverhill area to try and mitigate at least some of the impact that increasing incoming residents would have on the medical facilities within Haverhill. So those are the sorts of things that have been considered at the outline stage that we're obviously working with. But we are constrained to quite a large extent, the fact that we are working with a reserve matters process, not an outline planning application process. So hopefully that sort of answered some of the queries. I know I can't wave a magic wand and make them all be 100% sorted, but that's where we're sort of starting from, if you like.
Okay, Councillor Brown, do you want to come back?
Yeah, a quick one. Actually, we as councillors, as district councillors, received an email a few months ago to actually say that we were ahead on our housing delivery in the district. So I don't know where you got the figures around, Haverhill. We've got the Red Rose site coming on stream now. We're going to have 2,500 houses there. We've got the Persimmon site, 1,000 houses there, and then other allocations. We're having 4,000 houses. And to say, okay, you've bought the site, but provision of employment land at the other end of Haverhill, the same guy or same company that owned the land that you've just bought owned the employment land on the other end of Haverhill, and they said exactly the same thing. They couldn't sell. They tried to build houses up there. Luckily enough, West Suffolk fought that, and it got turned down. He sold the land. Another company bought it, and the land up there is selling like hotcakes. There's buildings going up as we speak. We don't know what happened with that employment site. I don't know where you are, but that, as I say, is a huge part of our employment land. That's supposed to be to make the whole of the Vision 2031 plan sustainable. We're supposed to be getting 2,000 high quality jobs on there, and now we're just getting more houses that we don't really need. I understand that it's already gone through outline planning permission against the will of every single person in this room, or in this Zoom meeting. All the local councils are totally against what you're doing. They wanted those high quality jobs, and they wanted people to be able to cycle to work, etc., not jump in cars and head off down the A13, A7. And to be fair, the whole of this development's ruined those plans. Put a stake through the heart of the plans. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Brown, and I totally agree with what you just said. Councillor Burns?
Okay, funny enough, my first thing I'd written down was, how will this benefit Haverhill? Remember, it's actually in Withersfield, so there is actually no financial income to our town to provide the services that you're going to be building there. Unfortunately, you're between a rock and a hard place on this. The previous developer, basically, all through the Vision 2031, produced figures which we proved were incorrect. And I take great exception to the planning inspector's ruling. I don't think he did a job very good at all, and I'll put this on here. You can sue me if you like. He basically relied on information from the previous owner of the site to say they couldn't market it, but we all know that the marketing rates per foot were extraordinarily high for Haverhill. These were Cambridge prices or even London prices in some cases. And as Councillor Brown said, he's done this elsewhere. He's done it in Red Lodge, he's done it in Stanton and various other places. So unfortunately, you're now getting the flack, let's call it that. Now, I did appreciate what was said from the start about the environmental side of things. I appreciate it's 155 units. I personally would have said actually bring the density down to 30 per hectare. We know on Arboretum 1, as you're now calling it, there was only 10% affordable housing on that because viability was claimed. I don't know whether that was Taylor Wimpey or whether that was the developer. Somebody allowed that because remembering from day one, there was supposed to be no housing at all on anywhere of this site. The landscaping was funded by the taxpayer via a loan, and the developer made a massive profit of selling the Arboretum 1 to Taylor Wimpey, which we as taxpayers never got anything back from, of course. As Councillor Brown says about the sustainability of this site, there is a bus service that's down the road that goes to Cambridge. If you need to get to Bury, you will have to go into Haverhill and change or drive. If you need to go to Stansted Airport, you will have to drive. We have no railway station. There are no short-term plans to provide anything like that. So one question would be is, how will you be marketing these houses to the residents? Where are they going to work? So that would be one thing. I don't know how Withersfield as a village will manage the fact they're going to have potentially another 300-400 people dominating their parish. And effectively, this came up under the community governance review 3 or 4 years ago, is that fact is it was bad enough with Arboretum 1. With Arboretum 2, I don't think they necessarily realise that everything from now on will be dominated by this development, which is now, 2 miles from Withersfield itself. So if they say we want a new village hall, the people of the Arboretum can say, yeah, that's great, we want it here. So that's a big problem. The very first slide I think mentioned, I think it said on it A1037 is actually A1307, if that needs to be fixed. You mentioned Suffolk parking standards. This comes up at every single planning meeting. You should not be going to the parking standards. They should be more, because we all know what happens. We've seen it with the Persimmon site in Northwest Haverhill. Got people parking on pavements, blocking visibility splines and everything else, because everybody's got 3 or 4 cars per house. And if you've got a 2-bedroom house or 3-bedroom house, you're only supposed to have 2 parking spaces. Actually, let's think about, although, we shouldn't necessarily be thinking about cars, but at least thinking about where all these people are going to be parking. I saw your plans on the affordable housing. I found them a little bit clustered. I think they need to be spread out more. I hated the 3-storey flat roof thing. We've just done through this same exercise with Persimmon, albeit on a 4-storey building, and they were trying to use that as the gateway to their site, and yours is exactly the same. I think it's awful. You should have something that looks attractive to do that. I think you mentioned minimum space standards at the beginning. I'm hoping you did, that you are going to conform to the government's minimum space standards. And finally, I'd be interested to know who is it who is telling you that we need a 1-bedroom house, 5-bedroom house, 3-bedroom house, whatever. Is this Plain Wimpey, or is this Public Health and Housing at West Suffolk? Because they change their mind every time the wind changes. So I'd be interested to know how that was it. So sorry to put a lot there, but thank you very much.
Alison?
Okay, I should do my best to remember all those. Right, the density is actually very similar to and slightly less than the density at the Arboretum. So in terms of houses per hectare or acre, it's very similar density, if not less. In terms of the viability and the affordable housing percentage that was provided at the Arboretum, it was only 10% at that point, because the residential development was classed as enabling development to enable the setting up, if you like, and the servicing of the employment land. So in terms of viability, the cost of what it would have cost to put an extra 20% affordable housing on there, that money was used to service the employment land as well. That's a sort of a fairly common planning mechanism. And that was the basis of the Arboretum phase 1. The landscaping, obviously that's been set up for a sort of commercial type use. We, as part of the sort of the landscape framework plan, the master plan, we're required to retain that, which obviously we're going to. But the comment that we have got back from the case officer so far is that it was obviously designed on a sort of for a commercial setting rather than a residential setting. So one of the aims of our landscape consultants will be to soften it, if you like, and make it more residential sort of in nature. But we will be keeping the framework that's already been established. In terms of sustainability, obviously, as I say, the principle of the residential use of that land has already been established. But it is possible to walk to the local centre, and obviously it's no different to really the residents that are already living in the Arboretum. I appreciate that it is fairly sort of car dependent, but there are bus links, and it will be fairly similar for the residents moving into this area as it is for the residents of the Arboretum, and indeed sort of Withersfield Parish in the wider sort of context, in terms of how they can use public transport and get around. Hopefully the village of Withersfield, when we speak to them, we can sort of explain that obviously the idea of bringing residents into the community is not that they're sort of clipped onto the community, if you like, as an enclave in its own right, but they do actually become integrated members of the village of Withersfield, and they can support the local services and also get involved in community life. So hopefully they won't be sort of seen as a them and us sort of scenario in terms of the incoming residents within the village. The parking standards, I take your point. It's sort of it's a problem these days. There is high car dependency, and many families do have more than 2 cars. However, the parking standards are there for us to comply with, and the Highway Authority will be commenting on the application, and they'll be looking at the number of parking spaces we provide, and what we are providing is in strict accordance with their requirements. So it will be a conversation, obviously, that we will need to have with the Highway Authority and obviously the case officer who's determining or progressing the application. But I do take your point, and we will be providing visitor spaces on site as well to help alleviate sort of any additional car park sort of demand that comes onto the site. The affordable housing and the idea of whether it's sort of clustered or spread throughout the site, it's a difficult one, this, because the councils generally want the affordable units sort of pepper potted throughout the site so that you don't get all the affordable housing in one location. But then you get the RSLs, the registered social landlords, who are going to manage the affordable units, don't necessarily want them too scattered, because in terms of their sort of management and maintenance of those properties, it's easier for them if there are sort of small groups of housing. So what we've tried to do is get a balance between pepper potting them around the site, but also providing them in smaller groups for management and maintenance going forwards. And in terms of the housing sort of mix, if you like, the numbers of bedrooms and things that are provided. That's informed by the SHMA, which the District Council carry out every year. And we've started engaging in pre-application consultation with the case officer and also the housing officer for the council. And we will be working with them in terms of getting the actual housing mix correct. Obviously, the open market housing is driven quite a lot by what we think the market would want in that area, and that's dealt with by our sales and commercial teams and also our land teams. And then the affordable housing has been informed to a large extent by the SHMA, but then also our future conversations with the enabling officer, the housing officer, the District Council will help us refine what we deliver in terms of the housing, the affordable housing offering, to make sure that we're meeting the local need. So I hope I've picked up most of the points that you raised there.
Yeah, I think, yeah, okay. I think there was one there that I tend to agree with, that Councillor Burns said about the terrible look of having a flat roof, 3-storey. I think it was, you know, wasn't very well liked as well, West Suffolk. Just a warning there. Is there any chance of making it a 2.5 storey?
I'll hand over to Dan to talk you through the design rationale, if you like, and what we can and can't do. Dan?
Yeah, and then I'll come back to Councillor Burns.
Yeah, I think, sorry. I think very simply, as we said, this is the very early stages of the actual process. So we take your comments very seriously, and I'm sure there are significant changes that we can make to appease those comments. So I'm sure we can demonstrate that at our next meeting, if not sooner.
Thank you. Councillor Burns?
Thanks, Dan. Thank you.
Thank you, Alison.
Sorry, thanks, Alison. Just very quickly, I don't want to take up our time, you mentioned local centre, walk to local centre. I assume that you're talking about Sainsbury's, because there are no other local centres nearby. I agree with what you're saying about the 10%. In my view, if the developer basically renegaded on our Vision 2031, which had gone through all the inspector and everything else as part of our local plan, he should have paid all that money back to us. You know, I'm talking about the difference between 30 and 10%, but that's, you know, that's down to him. The parking standards, just to remind you, in Suffolk, they're minimum space standards, not maximum. So that's important to take account of.
Especially for sorry to interrupt, especially for electric cars. Electric cars are much wider.
Yeah, so I was talking about the number of parking spaces, but yeah, I take your point there. And obviously with disabled and everything else. And I appreciate your comments about the RSLs. I agree, you know, that's what they do. But this is about people living in these for the next 100 years. We've already seen it with antisocial behaviour, where we've got too many clusters, and the people who actually have to fork out the £300,000–500,000 for a new house, they're the ones who are complaining bitterly about the fact that things are clustered around, and also the RSL that's been contracted, or whatever you call it, not managing the process. So we have to be very careful about who you decide in the end that the RSL is going to be, and that the fact that they manage the process, because it will reflect back on yourselves as the developers when you come to try and sell the houses, what's going on. Thank you, Chair.
I'll just sort of obviously just make the point that within the affordable housing units, there are the shared ownership ones and the rented. And obviously within the shared ownership units, people have a vested interest in looking after their property, because they're, you know, they are staircasing their financial input into that property towards hopefully 100%, which means they can then move on. So I do take your point. It's just it's obviously a very emotive and difficult sort of thing to get absolutely right. So we will be taking advice from obviously the housing officer and the RSLs to try and make sure we get that spot on.
Thank you.
And also the local centre, there are some local shops about a 20-minute walk away, not Sainsbury's, it's Apple something road. I can't remember the name of it now. But some little local shops.
two takeaways and something else. It's not actually a proper local centre. It's not the local centre that was designed. Let me just rephrase that.
Okay.
Councillor Smith and then Councillor Crooks.
Yeah, I won't say to most of the points that have actually been covered now, but I was going to ask about the affordable housing, how much of that is going to be social housing. What size are these affordable houses? Because they all look to be a similar size on the plans. I know it's only initial plans, but there needs to be a variety of sizes for different family sizes. I didn't see any bungalows on there or homes that would be suitable for people perhaps in their later stages of their life or even disabled. Again, the fully walkable bit, I didn't understand whether that meant just along in that development or connecting with the whole towns. I don't think it is. What else we got here? The density is too high. I know you're allowed to build a certain amount of houses on there, but why do you have to? Just because you can doesn't mean you have to. Yeah, I think that's probably covers most of it. Yeah, I didn't like the flat roof idea. The play area seemed a bit close to the main road going through the centre of the site. Can you put that? If you was going to put one, I'd put it away from the main road. I think that just about covers it. I think. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Alison.
Okay. In terms of the affordable housing percentage, there'll be 80% rented, 20% shared ownership. They will all be NDSS compliant, which means obviously that the actual internal spaces will be compliant with government requirements. And there will be a variety of properties delivered. As I said, we had sort of put forward an initial offering of affordable housing, if you like, which the enabling officer has come back and sort of queried. One of the things they have asked for is either 2 or 3 ground floor flats or bungalows. So that's something we need to look at. So that will provide for less able-bodied people, but also there'll be a variety of 1 to 5 bedroom properties. I think they've asked for 1 5-bedroom property on the site as well. So again, we'll be ensuring that the mix meets what the local need is expected to be or anticipated to be. My comment in terms of the footways was obviously there is an existing network of public footpaths, pedestrian links through the site and in the surrounding area. So we'll be making sure that the layout does enable good sort of integration through the site by pedestrians, which will then link up to the footways that are on the periphery, so that you do then hopefully get good links through into the village itself. The play area. Obviously, we're working within an established master plan and parameters plan that has been approved outlined. So we are tied to a large extent as to where that can be. But I think the thinking behind its location was you've obviously got a nice sort of landscaped pond, open space area already, and it's to sort of consolidate that area with a play area for the children, which would then become sort of in the middle of the wider Arboretum development, if you like, because you'll have it in the centre of the Arboretum phase 1 and then what would be phase 2. So I think that was the thinking behind putting it in that location. In terms of it being close to road, obviously the play area, children's play areas have to be fenced anyway, which obviously ensures the safety of the children. But the other good thing about where it's located is its natural surveillance. With it being in sort of the centre of the development there, you get good natural surveillance, which obviously the police and parents like to have their children being highly visible within a play area rather than tucked behind, sort of in a corner somewhere. So that's the thinking behind that. As I say, we are sort of constrained by the approved parameters plan and framework plan that was set out at the outline for that.
Just ask you said foot links to the village. Do you mean to Withersfield?
Yes, and the sort of the shops and any of the other facilities that were within the village. That's the idea, I think.
There's no facilities, no shops in Withersfield village.
Well, there's the local centre and any of the other facilities that would be in the bus links. Because we unfortunately we can't sort of change what's surrounding the site. We have to work with what's existing around the site, but what we need to ensure that is that the development actually links to what is in existence in the vicinity. We can't obviously change what's in the vicinity.
Yeah, I think some of the information you're being given is not correct.
Okay.
Okay. Right. Councillor Crooks.
Yeah, obviously we would have preferred it to stay employment land, but our fox has been shot. It's dead, so that is finished. Regarding the site, I think you're going to sell these really well. You know, you've got a pub on the site, which is a good facility. You've got Sainsbury's. There's a footpath from the site to Sainsbury's, so which is a 10-minute walk, which is a plus. The pond there, absolutely landscaped. It's absolutely beautiful, and the grass area next to the pond, it's going to look really good. I suppose my question is, the landscape. How will the development affect the landscape? I believe it's pretty well hidden, isn't it? I don't think we're going to see, as you approach the gateway to Haverhill, I don't think it's going to affect the landscape that much, but I would like some reassurance on that, or possibly some line of sight photos. Pat also made a good point at the start. Highway turning right out of Three Counties Way can be tricky, but we could even push for no right turn, I suppose, because there's a roundabout just to the left, so we could push for no right turn. But on the whole, yeah, the density will be too high. But I do believe these are going to be Wizardfield residents, but I do believe the residents will be happy there with the facilities that are actually existing. Yeah, thank you, Chair.
Right, Alison.
Yeah, just on that. In terms of sort of the landscape impact and things, when the outline planning permission was submitted, they did a landscape visual impact assessment, which basically looks at views from the site to the wider landscape, and obviously back from the wider landscape into the site. And it was obviously considered that wasn't going to be an issue. And also, you've got the existing landscape planting, which is already becoming established. We will be putting more trees and things in there as well, which will help soften any views that you do get into the site from the surrounding area. But also, I think potentially you could have had large commercial sort of employment buildings on that site, which would have been far more visually intrusive than our houses. And I think you're right that when we get the houses on the site and get them well landscaped, that you won't really get too many views of the development from the surrounding area. So really, I think any landscape impact that there might be from this development is less than would have been generated if it was used for employment use.
Okay, is there any more questions? No? Right, thank you very much, Alison, and thank you, Dan and Connor. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
It's really, really helpful if you can sort of present your comeback, and when you get your plans finally going, and then we can perhaps put some more comments if we can think of them. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Okay, thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night. Right.
Chair, the next item we've already taken. I'm sorry, I left it on the agenda. I swapped the two around and left it on there, sorry.
So is that item 8?
Yeah, so disregard that.
Okay. Item 9, to consider planning applications to West Suffolk Council. I will invite members of the public, if yes, Brad and Anne are still here, who wish to address the working party in relation to planning application, to speak ahead of the working party, considering each application in turn. Application 1, which is DC 21, 1880 VAR. Variation of condition 2 of DC 19-2073 FUL to enable the use of revised plans for a replacement assembly room and welfare block following demolition of existing scout hut, Colne Valley Road, Haverhill. Councillor Brown and then Councillor Cooney.
Yeah, it's great, you know, for youngsters of the town. Yeah, I personally fully support it, and hope the rest of the committee do as well. You know, this is sort of things we do need in the town, getting, you know, youngsters off the street and doing interesting stuff. So it fits in well with, you know, the area where it is. I've got no problem at all with it, and I hope, as I say, you know, the planning committee can support them in their endeavours to build this. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Luccarini.
Yes, about time they had a better facility. Really support this. I don't know if that was a proposal from Tony for support. If it is, I'm happy to second it.
Yeah. Is that a proposal, Councillor Brown?
Yes, it was. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Any other members wish to speak? No. Right, Councillor Brown wishes to vote in support of this application, and have we got a seconder? Councillor O'Kinney? Yeah. Okay. All those in favour of support, please show. Yeah, that's everyone. Thank you. Application 2, which is DC 21-1961 ADV. Small a, one internally illuminated fascia sign. Small b, one internally illuminated projecting sign. Small c, one edge illuminated window poster display sign. Excuse me. This is 36 High Street. This is Papa John's. Councillor Smith, then Councillor Burns.
I think this is it's already done, isn't it? It's already there.
Yeah, yeah, it's already there. This is retrospective.
That's the word I was looking for.
Yeah.
Okay. Councillor Burns?
No, I was going to say the same thing.
Oh, right. Okay. Vicky, I'm wondering, you know, as the West Suffolk District Council own the building, do we, us West Suffolk councillors, need to declare an interest on this? Councillor Burns?
No, you don't. No, we don't. It's not even a non-pecuniary thing. You know, in this, you know, we know we own it, but we could be in the case that we don't know we own it.
Okay.
No, you wouldn't. If this was development control, we wouldn't even mention it because it would come up as a West Suffolk application.
Right. Okay. Right, Councillor Smith.
Propose neutral then.
Okay. Councillor Smith proposes neutral. Can we have a seconder for that, please? Councillor Davison. Second it. All those in favour, please show. Yep, that's everyone. Thank you. Application 3, DC 21-1970 TPO. This is TPO 402 2000 in brackets 2005. Tree preservation order. 1 field maple, T1 on plan and order. Overall crown reduction by up to 1 metre and crown lift to 4 metres above ground level, and remove epicormic growth, I don't know if I've pronounced that right, from the base. This is 8 Sterling Drive. Any comments on that? No? Right, can I have a proposer for neutral then, please? Councillor Davison? Can I have a seconder for that, please? Councillor Liz Smith? All those in favour of neutral, please show. Yep, that's everyone. Thank you. Application 5, DC 21 1648 HH, small a, single story front and side extension, in brackets, following demolition of existing garage, close brackets. This is 1 Hellions Park Grove. This has come up, I think, the last meeting. I'm not sure now. I think it was. It's now a 3-story bedroom, where it was a 4-story before.
Sorry, you've skipped.
Vicky, sorry.
You've skipped a planning application.
Oh, sorry.
It was 1770, which is K15 Rookwood Way.
Oh, sorry. It's because I'm reading it for very small. Right. Sorry, I do apologise. Right. This is DC 21 1770 then. FUL. Right. Small a, single story side extension with enclosed roof mounted electrical room and plant area. Small b, repositioning of access. Small c, solvent store enclosure, sorry. Small d, 2 carbon adsorbent vessels. K15 Rookwood Way. This is some OFI. Right, is there any comments on this? Councillor Burns?
Just to comment this, although that's the address of Sanofi, it's actually on Hollands Road, the extension.
Right. Okay. Yeah, it's right at that end. Yeah, I see what you mean. Okay, is there any comments at all? No? So can I have a proposal for neutral on this one, please? Councillor Liz Smith, can I have a seconder? Councillor Crooks, all those in favour, please show. Yep, so everyone, thank you. Right, this is application 5, which is DC 21 1648 HH, small a, single story front and side extension, open bracket, following demolition of existing garage, close bracket. This is 1 Hellions Park Grove. And this is now a single story, 3-bedroom, whereas before the last planning one, it was 4, wasn't it? Right, is there any comments on this one, Councillor Liz Smith?
Yeah, it's still 4 bedrooms, I believe, because they've made it a guest bedroom. If I'm thinking about the right one.
No, that was the last one. That was the last one. There was a guest bedroom, a guest room.
This one.
This one is a 3-bedroom one now, single story.
No, and the new plans.
With the new, oh yeah, it's where the garage is, isn't it, or something? Where the garage was, they're building
it was going to be a workshop, and they're now putting it as a guest bedroom. So they've got 3 bedrooms upstairs.
Oh, I thought it's 2 bedrooms upstairs and 1 downstairs. Oh, I may be getting it wrong.
That's what I looked at earlier. Let's have a look.
I thought it was 2 bedrooms and one down. Councillor Burns?
No, it's the proposed the latest plans is 2 bedrooms upstairs and a guest bedroom downstairs.
Yeah.
So 3 bedrooms.
I thought it was.
Sorry, I misunderstood. When I looked at the plans, I must have looked at it wrong. I do apologise.
I can quickly share you if it's easier. Do you want me to do that, Chair?
Yes, please. Yeah. That would be good.
Bear with.
Get the confusion over with.
Yeah.
Because we do have a lot of plans to look at, and it is.
Hopefully you can see that. I can enlarge it a bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Bear with. Right.
Let's see upstairs. Yeah, you've got 2 bedrooms and a bathroom, haven't you?
Yeah. So let me just bring that down a bit so you can see it.
Yeah, that's it.
So there's your bathroom, bedroom 1, bedroom 2.
Yeah.
And then over. Oh, sorry. Hang on a sec. Guest bedroom on the ground floor.
That's it. Yeah, where the garage was, they've taken the garage down.
You can probably see it now.
Yeah, made a utility as well and ensuite.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, Councillor Burns, for that.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Any comments at all? No. Oh, Councillor Dave Smith.
Yeah, it's a single story, but the actual level that house was compared to the neighbours is about 3 or 4 feet higher. So it's more like a 1.5 story compared with the house next door. There's already a window on that side of the house overlooking. I don't know if that's a discrete glazed one or what, but yeah, it's going to be above the 6-foot fence anyway.
Councillor Burns, can you put that up again? I'm really sorry.
No, that's all right. Bear with. Bear with.
I want to look where that looks.
Bear with. Hang on, let me just reopen it again. Share. Bring it open. Share. And let me just enlarge it back up again.
Yeah, the bedroom we want.
Right. So there's these are the side elevations, which might be more relevant to what Councillor Smith is saying.
Yeah.
Can you see those all right?
Yeah, but we want to know what that window that overlooks that one above that single story is it that side or is it the opposite side?
This is the front elevation. This is the side elevation.
Councillor Smith, which window are you talking about? Do you know?
It's there's that one there, the proposed side elevation.
This one.
Right.
Yeah.
That
so,
one.
No.
So
I don't know if you could bring up a picture at all of, I don't know if you got a street view or something to show the difference in the heights or the elevation of the buildings. Would that be possible?
Let me just stop sharing.
Well, it might be totally irrelevant, but I just thought it was interesting.
Google. What's it called? Helium.
Park Grove.
Park Grove, isn't it?
Yeah, number 1.
And I've lost it there. It's here somewhere, isn't it? And if I go to satellite view, and if
that wasn't a.
That window's already there in the existing building.
Yeah, Councillor Brown. Yeah, I know, but was it a bathroom window?
I think so. It's there anyway. Yeah.
Let me share this. That where it's this house, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can get up the road a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's a bathroom window.
That's what.
Yeah.
Yeah, it overlooks the back garden, doesn't it?
Height. If I could get back one little bit. There you go. Can't tell whether it's.
But that'll still be there. It's just that it'll be a single story now. It won't be a double one.
Yeah, it's already there, isn't it?
Yeah, I did say it was already there, so it's probably relevant. I just make the point that although it is a single story extension, the fact that the house is so much higher than the house next door, that it actually makes it higher than normal. Because if you look at that fence there next to the car, how low that fence is, you know, it's
yeah. So
yeah.
It will sit here, won't it?
Mm. Anyway, that was just a point.
Okay. Any other comments at all? No. Do I have a proposer for a neutral then, please? Councillor Brown, could I have a seconder for that neutral, please? Councillor Davison, all those in favour for neutral, please show.
Sorry, turn the sound off.
That's everyone, I think. Is there any against? No? Okay. Right. Let's get this right. Right, application 6, which is DC 21, 1988, HH, single story rear extension, 12 Broad Street. Councillor Burns?
only just to, it's at the back of the garden, but only just to mention this is in a conservation area. So I guess at some point the conservation officer will have a comment, but you can't see it from the road or anything, as far as I can tell anyway.
Councillor Liz Smith.
Although I didn't see any objections from any neighbours, the extension is sort of going right up to the boundary line, which, I would expect perhaps a comment from a neighbour, but if we haven't had any, because it's sometimes can be intrusive, but just a point. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Brown.
Yeah, so I think many of the neighbours have done similar things. There's also loft conversions, whole manner of things have gone on down there. So yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments at all? No. Right, can I have a proposal for neutral then, please? Councillor Crooks and seconder, Councillor Cooney. All those in favour, please show. Thank you. All right, that's the lot for that. Let's get back to the agenda. This is item 10, which is matters to report. Councillor Burns.
Yeah, so I think probably all of you know we've got planning development control tomorrow morning in Bury, amongst which is sorry, waving goodbye to Brad and Anne. We have the dementia village on the A143, which is actually in Little Ratting area. I've got a feeling, based on the officer's report, which recommends approval, I've got a feeling that she's referring to documents that are not actually on the planning portal, because she reckons that highways don't have an objection, but the last document on the portal from highways is actually an objection in July. And I wonder how many other documents are missing from the portal that are not now. I noticed your comments, Chair, that you sent to the officer last week. I presume they should have gone on to the planning portal as well, and not on there either. I know the officer was on holiday last week, but sort of no excuse for not being able to see all the documents. So I don't know whether anyone has any comments that they want other members to consider that in the report, if you've read the report, or any of the documents that are online, supporting the town council's view, which is an objection, or completely reverse. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Burns. Is there any other comments at all? Councillor Stitchcombe?
The only thing I would add is, because I gather the CCG is saying that a relatively small amount of Section 106 money would help to improve primary care provision in town, but I don't think that's true in any practical sense, because no amount, whether it's millions or a few tens of thousands of Section 106 money, would improve primary care, because the CCG doesn't have any strategy for commissioning any more GP provision. So therefore they don't need any buildings, do they? Or, certainly not for GPs to inhabit. So, I think that's a really weak argument that, there's a bit of Section 106 money. Thank you.
Very good point. Yeah, this as far as that is concerned, with 120 residents with dementia, elderly, they will put quite enormous pressure on the GP services. There's no doubt about that, because our town is getting older as well, and they just can't cope at the moment. So how these poor residents in that village will get on, I just don't know. And obviously their families would be so disappointed as well with what's going on in Haverhill with GB services. It's a tragedy, it really is. Right, thank you for that. Councillor Brown?
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, yeah, a lot of the stuff's already been said, but I mean, it's in the middle of the countryside. There won't be any left soon. It's going to be sitting on top of the hill. It was not in the master plan. Is it sustainable when it's on top of such a big hill? People are actually going to be able to cycle, walk there. Is it linked by cycle paths, etc., etc.? And there's much more suitable sites to be built that are actually in Haverhill, i.e., or on the outskirts, the woodlands, etc., from places like that. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Okay. Right. Any more? No. Thank you. Right. The date of item 11, which is the date of next meeting, which is Tuesday, the 23rd of November. And thank you everyone for attending for this long meeting. I thought it was very good myself. And I'll see you on the 23rd. Thank you.